So, Gloria, thanks for coming in and talking about...
Don't do that. That's alarming. It's made me very emotionally sort of
So
constipated.
tell me about what you thought of the book.
This is a great book. Shall I start?
Yeah, good.
Shadow Health Secretary, Labour's Wes Streeting. We're recording on the Thursday. It's going out on Sunday, but it's the evening of your book launch. We're here at your old school. It's a great book.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed it. So you're born to teenage parents. You grew up on a council estate. You experienced poverty. You had grandparents in prison. That is a hell of a list. You make it to Cambridge University and you're a very senior politician now. Do you still think of yourself as working class?
Yes, to an extent. I'm very proud of my background. I think I always describe myself as having a working class background. But I'm under no illusion, not least because there are a lot of my family whose lives are better off than they were in the early years described in the book, but still struggle to get by. I'm not going to pretend that being a member of Parliament on the salary that I earn, with the level of security that I have for the first time in my life, that my life is the same as it was then, or that I have the same challenges as, say, my mum, who works as a cleaner. There are lots of people in my family, like my dad, who've managed to work hard, get on the housing ladder and sort of work their way up, who, you know, when my dad would still say, I think he's working class. I don't think your class ever leaves you in a way, and I'm very proud of my roots, even though, as I often say, in terms of my work as a politician, I don't want kids to grow up experiencing the same sort of poverty and hardships that I experienced growing up. Certainly my mum and her side of the family experienced growing up. You know, that's one of the reasons why I'm in politics, because I want to make sure that kids from backgrounds like mine have the same chances and choices and opportunities and security that I have now.
We both had the experience of being on free school meals. I remember having to stand in a different school queue just because I was a free school meal kid. It was humiliating. I don't know if you have any of those stories.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, exactly the same. In primary school, it was a leveller. So mums and dads would hand in the dinner money at the reception on the Monday morning. Those of us who didn't have to pay, we got free school meals, you wouldn't tell the difference. No one knew who was in and out of the office, and when you went into the school hall, you all got your dinners together. When I came to this school, the big shock for me was a big long queue to get into the school hall, and then once you get there, I was put into a different queue, and it was straight away I thought, oh my God, I'm in the poor kids queue, basically. And when you're trying to fit in and make new friends and think about first impressions, I just felt like I was standing under these massive flashing neon lights saying, hello, we're the poor kids. That stigma hasn't, I feel it viscerally. And in fact, the irony of this book in a way is that the sort of 12, 13-year-old me here at this school would never have wanted to tell any of these stories. And it's taken me about 30 years to be in a position where I feel able to share this story. I must say it's the most terrifying thing I've done in my life, because as politicians, you're not supposed to show vulnerability. You know, I'm very protective of my family. And as people find when they read it, this is not just my story. In fact, it's very much my parents' story, my grandparents' story. It's warts and all, and there are lots of painful family stories in there. And while I've done it with their permission, their blessing, I couldn't have written this book without their full support, and I wouldn't have written it without their full support. I'm still nervous because when people pick up books and they talk about characters, these are real people. And so I feel, yes, I'm very excited but very nervous about sharing some of these stories.
Your mum and dad split up when you were a baby. When you're about 2 years old, she gets together with a man called Lenny. I read the book. He is a violent, controlling brute, your words. When she broke up with him, he held her hostage for 24 hours and ended up in prison for what he did to your mum. Nearly 40 years ago. There'll be women that go through that same experience now. Men still beating up their wives and girlfriends, murdering them in some cases. You were very, very young, but I just wondered if that experience had taught you anything about how we deal with that sort of, I don't know if you can call it masculinity.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't call it masculinity. That was one of there are a few things in the book that I found very hard to write about, as in this case as a son, in other cases as a grandson. I don't remember any of it because I was too young. As I was writing about it, the main thing I just thought was how incredibly courageous my mum must have been. Because now, like, you look at the statistics, most men who hit women, beat women, rape women, don't even see the inside of a courtroom, let alone the inside of a prison cell. So for my mum to have escaped that controlling relationship, had the courage to go to the police, to see it through to the court with her younger sister, who I think was barely a teenager, and at one point he had such a control that he had taken my mum's younger sister, dangled her over a balcony by her ankles and threatened to drop her unless my mum stayed in that relationship. So when you have that sort of threat, not just to yourself, but to the people you love hanging over you, I cannot imagine what my mum must have gone through. And it was one of the times in my life where my mum actually handed me over to my dad and his dad, my granddad, because, you know, although no harm did come to me, she was worried that it would. And I cannot imagine what she would have been going through and the courage she showed. And, you know, honestly, 40 years later, is the criminal justice system in a much better place? I can't honestly say that it is. And I think we've got to do two things. One is toughen up the criminal justice system. So whether it's in the course of the police investigation or the process that women go through to see a case through to prosecution, the speed at which it goes through to see through a prosecution, we've got to make improvements there. But frankly, when it comes to violence against women and girls, this isn't a problem for women to solve, it's a problem for us to solve as men. And that starts with boys. And even in my own borough today, I'm astonished at the stories that primary and secondary school girls tell me about the catcalling, the wolf whistling, the unwarranted touching that takes place. And it's got to start there. And this is cultural, it's systemic, it's hard, but it's our responsibility to fix.
Right, your granddad, working class Tory. Your dad, yeah. Working class Tory, worked all their life, prided themselves on never taking a penny in benefits. Still a common view today. Lots of working class people think Labour is all about benefits rather than work. Loads of graduates vote Labour, lots of working class people vote Tory. Do you understand working class Tories? Because your dad...
Yeah, because I grew up with them. And I'm not sure what's a bigger disappointment to my dad that I ended up being a Labour MP or supporting Arsenal. My dad is actually he's gone off the Tories a bit, actually, I think like lots of Tories have. I'm not sure how he's going to vote at the next election, but
really?
He's not happy.
Really? So he's still even when his son became an MP?
The only time my dad has voted Labour was for me in a council election when I still lived.
But at parliamentary, he would still vote.
I think he's voted Green as a protest vote. You'd have to ask him. But it does give me a window though into why people, because I think Labour is fundamentally for the working class. We were established by the trade union movement, by the Labour movement, to give a voice, representation, and a government for the majority, not just the privileged few. Yeah. And over time, we've lost a lot of working class support. I mean, actually, to be fair, there's always been a chunk of working class voters who voted Conservatives, and I think Mrs. Thatcher in particular had an appeal that spoke to my granddad and my dad. So I've always understood it, and I've always understood the obstacles that often stop people voting Labour. It's the same questions: can we trust you with the money? Can we trust you on law and order? Can we trust you on national security? And Labour has always won when we've had leaders who've got us to a place where the answer to those questions is yes, and I think Keir will be one of those leaders. But there's always that difficulty. The benefits thing is really interesting, because again, I see it from both sides. My granddad, my dad, very proud of the fact they've never claimed a penny in benefits. And I remember when my dad left his job as a publican, he worked all of the hours he could on a building site during the day, mini-cabbing by night, to make sure that, because at the time I was living with my dad and he was a single dad, to make sure that we had a roof over our head. When I was growing up, especially living with my mum, that benefit system and that welfare safety net was vital. Sometimes it put food in the fridge and money in the electric meter when we didn't have it. And today, I think that there are people like my dad going out to work all the hours they can every day who still don't have enough money at the end of the month, at the end of the week, at the end of the day to make ends meet. Something's gone wrong. We've broken the link between a hard day's work and a fair day's pay. And for me, social security should always be exactly that, a safety net and a springboard back to work. There will always be some people who genuinely can't work. Yeah. And of course, those people should receive the income they need to live a decent life. But, the Labour Party is a party of labour. It implies work. And I'm, proud to come from a working class family.
Okay. God, we're running out of time. It's absolutely fascinating. I just want to get a quick answer for you on this. When sometimes people in the Labour Party, they wear those "Never Kissed a Tory" hat.
Yeah. I have worn one of those "Never Kissed a Tory" t-shirts. I'm not entirely sure it's true. But there'll be some Tories at my launch party. I've got friends in the Tory party. I've got family who vote Tory. For me, politics is a battle of ideas, not a battle of personalities. And as much as they drive me up the wall, I think there are lots of MPs in the House of Commons who are genuinely in it for the right reasons. And at a time when there's a lot of cynicism about us, it's worth saying that most politicians are in it for the right reasons, even if the minority give the majority a bad name.
Okay. You're a gay man. You realised this in adolescence. You thought of it as a secret that you couldn't tell anyone. That changed when you went to university. You describe a deep sense of shame running through your adolescent years. You're a Christian and you write that you feared going to hell. Isn't there something wrong with a religion that made you feel like that?
Well, that's a deep question. How am I going to answer this quickly? I think it took me a long time to reconcile those two things, and I am now at peace with being a gay Christian. And I genuinely think that I am the way that I was made. In this question of choice, I spent many years choosing not to be gay and desperately trying not to be gay. And it was painful. And it was only when I came out, I felt this feeling of enormous liberation, like the weight of the world had lifted off my shoulders, and finally recognised the person looking back at me in the mirror. And it was this happy, joyful feeling. I just thought, this is who I am. This is how I've been made. In a country where we're free to disagree and believe different things, and in a constituency that I represent that's very religious, there are lots of people who hold what I would describe as a mainstream orthodox view that homosexuality is sinful. That's what makes life difficult for those of us who are religious and gay. But I am reconciled theologically that we're made in God's image. I think that to be gay and Christian is not contradictory. And the thing I find really sad is that a lot of people, when they think of religion, think bigotry, exclusion, you're not welcome here. And certainly in the case of my religion, but I think it applies to others, I think the message of Christianity is about love, loving your neighbour, standing up against injustice, and not walking by on the other side. And when I look at what faith communities do in my constituency in terms of things like homelessness and hunger, I think faith motivates so much good, but often when people read about politicians being religious, they think, are you going to vote against a woman's right to choose? Are you going to vote against LGBT equality? Are you going to vote against my rights? And people can look at my voting record. I've got a very liberal voting record actually, but it makes me sad because I think religion is a very positive force for good. But I totally understand why people don't see it that way. And I think that's on us as religious people. And we're meant to be going out there and building a bigger tent and bringing people to our faith. And I think actually there's a lot of prejudice that pushes people away, and I find that sad.
I'm gutted that we've run out of time, really. I so much more to discuss. But I feel really pleased that I read this book. I think your family are amazing, Wes.
Thank you.
I really think you've got the most incredible parents and grandparents, and they must be so incredibly proud of you.
Yeah, I really
so here's to them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wes Streeting.